When you love something, you protect it.
A little taste of Marvel's latest superhero ensemble, the Eternals. So we are back in Marvel's cinematic universe. Oscar-winning director attached to this, a star-studded cast, Angelina Jolie, Kit Harington among them. But you know, it's incredible. It has the lowest Rotten Tomatoes ranking in Marvel history, so we have to figure out what's going on here. Thankfully, we have both Eli and Jackson back with us this morning to tell us about it. Hi, guys.
Hello, hello.
Another Friday with both of you. Looking forward to it. Eli, you lead us off. Who are the Eternals? Introduce us.
Okay, so millions and millions and millions of years ago, there's these giant beings called the Celestials. They were kind of the Johnny Appleseeds of the galaxy. They go around growing universes, planets, and then putting these superpowered teams in place to babysit. Hovering over the Earth, there's a Celestial. Doesn't he look lovely? Hovering over the Earth is just one such team. They look like bespoke Power Rangers. Beautiful, colorful costumes, these lines tracing patterns over their body, and they all have different abilities. Strength, speed, illusion. Gemma Chan has the power to change matter. Let's take a look.
We came here 7,000 years ago to protect humans from the deviants.
Why didn't you guys help fight Thanos? Or any war, or all the other terrible things throughout history?
Oh, look, it's Kit Harington as her human boyfriend, starting to realize that she's just a little bit older than him. So the Eternals have been basically sticking around, hiding among us, waiting for the evil deviants to pop up after the events of Avengers Endgame. Deviants do start popping up. The Earth starts shaking very violently, and so it's time for them to get the band back together. But, Jackson, this is a little different than the original source material, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it needs to be always. Marvel does adapt, what they draw from, and they change what the story originally was. This is largely drawn from the Neil Gaiman reboot of the Eternal series, which was originally made by Jack Kirby. And it has the same plot point. I don't want to reveal too much of it, but obviously it does change quite a lot. But it's really hard to say how faithful of an adaptation this movie really is. For that exact reason, the Eternals were never really a huge player in the Marvel Universe in terms of their popularity with audiences, not in terms of their power, because they are very powerful when it comes to Marvel. But there's been so many changes in the comics because they never really landed squarely with an audience that they just kept rebooting what the characters were, what they could do, what their place was in the whole pantheon. That
so even in the comics, they couldn't make up their mind on how to treat them, and now we're trying to do the same thing with the movie.
I mean, of course, like, for example, 3 of the characters in this movie are gender swapped from their most common iteration. That's Makari and Sprite and Ajax are all the opposite characters that they're depicted in the movie. But that's not even really canon in the comics because they do swap later on when everything changes. So it's really hard to say if this is, accurate or not.
By the way, did you read anything? Did you read like a massive volume for this one, Jackson, like you did for Dune last time you were talking? I just want to know what you prepped or how you prepped. So, Eli, we have for this one, we have this all-star cast. We've been talking about it there. This Oscar-winning director, space god, deviants. I mean, what's not to like about this film?
There's too many super people. That is the biggest problem. Imagine, Heather, if the first modern Marvel movie was The Avengers. So we didn't really appreciate who Hulk or Hawkeye or Black Widow were, and they threw them all at us at once. It would be overwhelming. Well, Eternals has that problem times 10. You have these 10 different characters, all with their different backstories, all with their different abilities, and then you have these kind of superficial sketches trying to give us a sense of who they are. Phastos, Makari, Icarus, Gilgamesh, all the rest, and we have kind of these like bite-sized thumbnail sketches of their personalities, and then on top of that, this massive kind of cosmic conspiracy that we get get thrown into. And the other challenge is, if you look at, the Marvel movies that really work, what do they have? Great villains. You think of like the cunning Killmonger. You think of the grand Thanos, kind of the gravitas that he brought. Here, most of what you see them battling are these deviants who look like, I don't know, a group of like animated power chords snarling at each other. And so it's just not the same. And as Jackson will tell us, I mean, I think there's a sign here, and you can see the movie struggling. It just doesn't fit that well into the Marvel universe.
Yeah, I mean, you asked if I've done some reading for this, and I absolutely had. I've read the 400-ish page Jack Kirby original Eternals run. I read the Neil Gaiman reboot. I read the sequel after that, and I don't want to get too into the weeds in terms of plot, but it is so difficult to start a movie with the Eternals because, for a little bit of backstory, the Eternals were never supposed to be in the Marvel superhero canon in the first place. They were originally written by Jack Kirby, who is, the comics guru from Marvel, and he only wanted to write it because he was really, really entranced by this book called Chariot of the Gods, which is about ancient aliens. He wanted to write about ancient aliens. All that to say, he wanted it to be its own standalone story because it's so hard to bring in a story about the gravity of an alien visit to Earth when aliens come to Earth every Tuesday in the Marvel Universe. It's not a big deal. So,
and I think those kind of mythic beings are actually something that the DC heroes do better. You look at Superman, you look at Wonder Woman, they're not down-to-earth heroes, but they are kind of larger than life. Strangely, this is what this Marvel movie is reaching for, but it kind of clashes with that more jokey Marvel style.
Okay, wait, I got to jump in here because, guys, when Jackson has got us ready for a treatise on the Eternals here. But I need to ask you about Chloé Zhao because, right. Eli, Nomadland, 3 Oscars. I mean, what happened?
That is part of what makes me so frustrated. I feel like what happened to Chloe is like what happens when Galactus comes along and gobbles up planets. After like the pinnacle of her career, winning 3 Oscars, she gets gobbled up by the mighty Marvel machine. Now, Chloé Zhao is a remarkable filmmaker. In her previous films like Nomadland and The Rider, she has this thing where she uses real people, and sometimes you think you're watching a documentary, sometimes you think you're watching a drama. She has this touch. She captures people's humanity, their empathy. You don't see that in this film, except for the kind of beautiful pictures and the interesting locations that she insisted on. But I'm missing her fingerprints as a director. But, as Jackson will tell us, I think there are some other positive attributes she does bring to the Marvel Universe.
Oh, of course, there are definitely positive attributes. Some of these changes that I was talking about earlier are very welcome. There's Brian Tyree Henry, who plays the very first openly gay superhero in the Marvel, made by Marvel Comics universe. And there's Lauren Ridloff, who plays, she is a deaf woman, and she plays a deaf version of Makari. And these are wonderful and nuanced and layered attributions. And I think her changes are very, very welcome, her ability to expand the universe. And when we talk about, when I talk about all these kind of, nitty-gritty details about how it's hard to get aliens into this universe, it might seem pedantic, but this is really an existential issue for Marvel because they've already, the characters have already saved the universe. How do we up the ante from there? How do we bring in new characters and make audiences go to the movie theaters and pay for more movies? That's not something that the comics really need to deal with because Iron Man can keep working as a comic character for 60, 70, 100 years, but
the story needs to work. I need to care about these space gods. I understand what you're saying. They're reaching for galaxies. They're trying to give us a bigger scale, but I didn't really care about these people.
That leads me to jump right in, because if you didn't really care, then what quickly are your final verdicts? Eli, you start.
I think it is a beautiful bore and a waste of Chloé Zhao's wonderful talents. 2.5 stars out of 5.
Jackson?
Well, we kept our ratings a surprise from one another, but I will say the same. It's 2.5. It's going to be necessary viewing for a Marvel fan, but maybe just go ahead and read the Neil Gaiman book and call it a day.
As you did for us. I always appreciate it when you're both with our program. Thank you, Eli. Thank you, Jackson. 2.5 all around for the Eternals. I am eternally grateful.